How would you respond to people whose response to an unpopular scientific fact is that most scientific studies are corrupted by the institutions that are funding them? Are there any means for regular, that is, non-scientist people to find out the reliability of any study? This is an important question, and it's at some level going to require that you learn some of the some of the sort of code words that people use in the papers within the fields that you're interested in discerning, and become at least capable, somewhat scientifically literate yourself. That said, the peer-reviewed literature, the primary literature, is mostly such a mess that I really don't want to recommend that to anyone unless you are required to do it. So, how do we encourage people to become more scientifically literate and to actually assess themselves what a study says, given that, as we have shown time after time right here, and we used to all the time in our classrooms, not only is most primary literature flawed to some degree and written so as not to be decipherable by many people outside of the field, but the media, when individual research is covered by the media, it's almost always done so badly that if you just take the media cover of a story, you will end up with some wrong assessment of what the research said. So that's a description of the problem without solution making at all. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I think it's hopeless. I think no. I mean, are you going to, as a private citizen, be able to unpack the garbage work in some field you haven't studied? You shouldn't expect that you will be able to, unless you have an extraordinary capacity and interest in that field. You're not going to be able to train yourself to do it without spending a huge amount of time. The best thing you can do is find somebody with a track record of figuring out where the work is valid and where it isn't valid. So in some sense, a Nassim Taleb-like figure can be your guide to what high quality work looks like and what nonsense looks like. So you can sort of proxy. And of course, Nassim has his blind spots. But he's following him is probably better than it is trying to, reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. In terms of, I don't want to say it's hopeless. I mean, because this is something that I in particular used to try to help students with, is try to demonstrate how to become intelligent consumers, unfortunately, of the scientific literature. With the recognition going in that it's not written to be understood by outsiders, and yes, scientists view everyone who's not actively doing science in that field, for the most part, as outsiders. So it's not an uncorrupt phenomenon at all. So one thing, and this is by no means perfect, is to look for the hypothesis. If you are actually looking at a paper that was written, a piece of primary literature, meaning a paper written by the people who actually did the research itself, look for the hypothesis clearly stated up front in both the abstract and the introduction. And increasingly, scientists who are not hypothesis-driven will game this and pretend that they had a hypothesis all along and put it up front. But it's also amazing how many papers don't even pretend. And so if you're looking at research that doesn't even pretend that it had a hypothesis, then I would say right away you can say, I don't really need to spend time here. And when we were professors and I was asked to do peer review of papers for a variety of journals, it was amazing to me how many papers my primary review that went back was, I see no evidence of a hypothesis here. I can't recommend that you publish this. I was not particularly beloved among journal editors as a result, because the number of papers coming in that just had no pretense of hypothesis was amazing.
Yeah, no, it is a total failure. But even in the case of the ones that have it, I think you're dealing with a situation, and I've forgotten what the name of this principle is, but you are often, where you are an expert, able to detect just how bad reporting is, just journalistic reporting on something where you know a lot, and then the reporting in every other thing looks okay. Now, increasingly, that's not true, but 10 years ago, that was a widely reported pattern. What that means is that the reporting sucks in all of those places. You're just capable of detecting it in the one where you have the expertise. And my point would be, science it's like that, right? You will find in each place there's the stuff that's not being said. I mean, you can look at the SARS-CoV-2 stuff from the beginning about the natural origin of this thing, right? You had to have a certain kind of expertise to be able to spot how nonsense-filled this story was, but if you did have it, it was clear, and yet you've got
And if you didn't have it, you were told you were a crackpot conspiracy hypothesist.
Right.
For believing in such a thing.
Exactly. And so, to this day, we're dealing with that outgrowth, which is to see the emptiness of that explanation, of the natural origin explanation, is to sideline yourself. But I wouldn't expect... It's not on you. The fact is, the fields are broken. They're broken because of perverse incentives. It's rare to find a field where that's really not true. And so,
but I mean, I applaud the question. So I feel like you're giving the person writing an out, but I don't think, I'm going to guess here, given the name, that she wants an out. She's looking for
Sure.
a road forward, right? Like, what can I do as someone who is not a scientist to interpret scientific findings, and not just have to sit down and shut up when people say, you can't trust that because institutions corrupt science. It is both true that institutions corrupt science and that good science is done.
Well, yes. On the other hand, it's a little, if the person said, I'm not comfortable with the fact that the products I buy result in the misery of the people involved in producing them, or the people downstream from the pollutants and making them, how can I, build my life around products that don't hurt people? And the answer is, you can't. It's not on you. This is something we have to collectively solve, because the individual level solution doesn't exist. So, I don't like saying that, but I also don't want to lead you to believe that there's a good solution to...
I think it's a little bit different, though.
Okay.
Because with regard to products and taking it on yourself, minimize your impact. You are experiencing the personal responsibility vortex, the coin that you termed in your TED Talk years ago.
Term that I coined.
Did I say coin that you termed?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you did that.
I didn't.
No.
I wouldn't have.
No, you would not have. So now I can't get it right. The personal responsibility vortex, a term that you coined in a TED Talk years ago.
Well done.
Would be the thing that you're talking about with regard to seeking to minimize as much as possible the impact of your consumption choices on the environment, for instance, which if there are other reasons for you to do so, terrific. But if you suffer all the costs of minimizing the costs, other people win at cost to you. Whereas in this case, this person is trying to better themselves and not simply make the collective better.
Oh, I get why this person wants to do this, and I want them to do this, but I also know that you're wading into fields in which you've got reciprocity networks in which people are, passing each other's papers through peer review because they want their papers passed through peer review. I mean, look, here's the thing. The year before the replication crisis broke in psychology, it was completely obvious that there would be one. And it's not psychology. Psychology is where it broke first. Any place that you've got statistics and p-values, it was obvious that there was a perverse incentive that was going to result in the complete derangement of all of the work downstream of this, because the way you advanced your career was to publish papers. The way you published papers was to get significance. The way you got significance was to, massage your data.
Green jelly beans cause cancer.
They sure do.
Yep,
right.
They sure do.
Green jelly beans cause cancer. So the point is, look, it was obvious there was a replication crisis. In light of a replication crisis, how do you figure out which results in psychology are right? Turns out pretty close to none of them, right? So what do you do about that? There's just nothing to do, and, the thing to do, it is the personal responsibility vortex. The thing to do is to demand science that actually works. And the way you do that is you provide an incentive structure that doesn't cause people to publish bad work in order to advance their careers. Now we do need a drink.